butereevu mu DRC eno nno tusimbye nnyo amakanda kubanga ebyayo birabika biwanvu bifuuse namulanda nga amabeere g'embwa. Jeno Museveni gye buvuddeko yatukakasa nga bwagenda okubeera ng'akwasaganya ensonga ezo era yategeeza bakulu banne nti mubindekere nze ngenda kwogerezeganya n'abayekera ba M23 era nkakase nga ebintu bidda mu nteeko. Kakati atuwadde amakubo abiri ye gaasuubira gayinza okuyitamu.
President Museveni.
Your Excellencies, I think the way forward would be one, what you said, to really insist to His Excellency Tshisekedi that he talks directly to these people who are M23 and those people who are in conflict with him, because it doesn't only affect Eastern Congo, it also affects us. To me, that would be number one. Number two, the best forum that can help is to insist on an East African Community SADC summit, so that we talk directly to our brothers in the presence of His government of Congo. That to me would be the second one. To have this summit between the joint summit between East Africa and SADC, because any other forum, I don't know which forum would handle this.
Amakubo ago abiri muganda wange ogawulidde. Ekisooka agambye nti ye ekuba erisooka lyasuubira nti Tshisekedi President wa Democratic Republic of Congo alina okwogerezeganya obutereevu n'abayekera ba M23. Ekuba erisooka. Ekuba eryokubiri nti walina okubaawo ekyo kiba kiganye kiri ekya Tshisekedi okwogerezeganya n'abayekera ba M23 obutereevu, kati walina okubaawo enjogerezeganya wakati wa blocks ebbiri, forum ebbiri eya East African Community neya SADC eri mu South Africa ne banywanyi bayo Tanzania n'abalala. Tanzania ndowooza kati ye eri egwa mu njuyi bbiri, naye nti walina okubaawo enjogerezeganya wakati wa forum zino ebbiri, SADC ne East African Community. Ge makubo abiri. Ye talinaawo kkubo lye ye nga ye erimu bweriti nti agenda abakubire oba ki. Era ndaba akizizza eno gye kyabadde. Russia yalabudde era ng'okulabula kuno kwaddiridde abayekera ba M23 n'eggwanga erya Rwanda okubeera nga balabula nga bwe bagenda okubeera nga balumba Kinshasa singa tebabaleka. Kwegamba baagala babaleka awo, kale waakiri eggoma babeera awo, naye singa bagezaako kubaŋŋanga kitegeeza nti bagenda kumaakinga nga bagenda goma gavumenti bagijjeko. Kakati Russia munnange bwetyo neerabula.
Mr. President, thank you for the floor. Members of the Council, first of all, I would like to note that for the first time in our meetings, Rwanda did extend condolences for the fallen peacekeepers. However, I would like to rectify something. The peacekeepers did not die in a process. The peacekeepers were killed. Second of all, SADC forces deployment through SAMI DRC were not deployed unilaterally by the DRC, but rather with a mandate from the AU, an organization Rwanda is a part of, even if its behavior in the DRC clearly flaunts its principles. Third, the M23 excluded itself from the Nairobi process by renewing attacks against the FARDC. The government of the DRC has nonetheless expressed its willingness to re-include the M23 in the Nairobi process. We reject Rwanda's obsession and attempts to elevate the M23 to the level of an interlocutor deemed fit to sit at the same table as a legitimate government. 30 years down the line, we have never stooped to the level of expecting and demanding from Rwanda to talk to its brothers and sisters, the FDLR, who are still in our country. We have not stooped to that level. Fourth, on regime change, we will remind the Rwandan delegation that the M23 and the AFC has repeatedly expressed its intent to march in Kinshasa. The very M23 Rwanda forces are backing right now. There is a subtlety that should not go amiss between words and actions. Rwanda's actions, side by side with the M23, are actions seeking to overthrow a legitimately established government. On the Luanda and Nairobi processes, we will remind the Rwandan representative that the DRC never left the negotiating table. It was Rwanda that did not show up on the 15th. It was Rwanda that did not come when President Lorenzo invited us. And President Kenyatta was also present. President Tshisekedi honored his commitment. In the past weeks, we have seen efforts, calls from this council, from our partners, from our friends, urging us all to renew our efforts within the Luanda process. The DRC never left the table. It is up to Rwanda to come back to the table. I would also like to remind the Council that in this very session, the government of the DRC, through my own statement, condemned all attacks against diplomatic missions in the DRC. We do this in our concern to abide by and respect international law. However, we have yet to hear Rwanda explain to us what its efforts have been to abide by international law and to respond to the violations it has been found guilty of in the DRC. Violations of the Charter, violations of international humanitarian law, violations of international human rights law. Members of the Council, I would like to close with what has brought us back here in less than 48 hours. Rwanda's outright contempt for this Council and its declaration that it will not, for the Council and the Council's declaration, and its demonstration that it is in the deluded belief that there is a Rwandan exception when it comes to international law. But what has also brought us here is the Council's choice 2 days ago to opt for words and not for actions. This Council is not unable to take actions. In fact, it is uniquely equipped to take actions. Hence, the question that remains at the end of this meeting is whether this Council is unwilling to act. Thank you.
I thank Her Excellency Ms. Kayikwamba Wagner for her statement. And I now give the floor to the representative of the Russian Federation.
Господин председатель,
Mr. President,
благодарим
we'd
заместителя
like to thank the
спецпредставителя
Deputy
Генерального
Special
секретаря
Representative of the
Vivian
Secretary General,
van der Perp
Vivian van der Per, for her briefing.
Приветствуем
We
участие в заседании
welcome
министра
to
иностранных
the
дел
meeting the Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Teresa Banga, and the representative of the other countries who've requested the floor under Rule 37. Distinguished colleagues, 2 days ago we met in this chamber and discussed the worrisome developments in the situation in the eastern DRC. Over the past 48 hours, the situation has significantly deteriorated, especially with the seizure of Goma, where there are more than 1 million civilians located. Russia firmly condemns the actions of M23. We call for a swift cessation of hostilities and a withdrawal of the rebels of the illegal armed formation from the towns, villages and territory they have seized. We also urge external forces to cease their support for M23 and to recall their military units. There's a need without delay to resume the negotiation process in Luanda. We must not allow a spillover of the escalation which could threaten the lives of people on both sides of the border and is likely to turn into an interstate conflict on a regional scale. We are seriously concerned by the humanitarian repercussions of what's going on. In front of our very eyes, the already difficult situation in North Kivu is turning into an utter humanitarian disaster. Goma de facto is cut off from the outside world. This may have serious consequences for the inhabitants of the town and the IDPs who have fled there. Once again, we would like to express our condolences to the families of the civilian victims of the DRC, the UN peacekeepers, and the fallen SADC soldiers. We stand in solidarity with the governments of the DRC and those states who've lost their service personnel. We wish their speedy recovery. We'd like to underscore that Russia unequivocally condemns the attacks on peacekeepers. It's absolutely unacceptable. We firmly support the UN peacekeeping mission in the stabilization mission in the DRC, its leadership and the Blue Helmets. We also condemn any attacks and acts of aggression regarding international diplomatic representation. Such actions have absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with peaceful demonstrations. We urge Kinshasa to ensure the protection of foreign missions and diplomatic staff, pursuant to the Vienna Convention and its international obligations. The violence in eastern DRC needs to stop. However, there's no military path to resolve this crisis. It is absolutely clear that this is only possible as a result of political agreements. We're convinced that the Luanda process remains the best forum where agreements can be reached. We carefully listened to the representative of Angola during the meeting of the Council on Sunday. Angola clearly stated that the only obstacle to preventing a signature of a reconciliation document between Kinshasa and Kigali was the issue of cessation of government interaction with the illegal armed formations, and primarily with the M23. Without settling the status of this group as part of the intra-Congolese dialogue, any attempts to improve the situation between the DRC and Rwanda will not bear lasting fruit. Here, there is an urgent need for the resumption of the Nairobi process and the pushing forward of similar regional initiatives. There's no alternative to this. Mr. President, attempts to settle the crisis will also not bear fruit if the countries of the Great Lakes region do not take decisive measures to combat the illegal exploitation and smuggling of natural resources, the lion's share of which, as we all know, come from the eastern DRC, which is beset by instability. There's a need for extra-regional players and large transnational corporations to review their relationship with the use of these resources, because in their interest there's this ongoing illegal supply of blood minerals. These states have all instruments available to them to stop the hot phase, so to speak, of the conflict and to exert pressure on the parties so they return to negotiations. They must be harnessed to protect people's lives and to stop the suffering of hundreds of thousands of civilians. Unfortunately, we've all seen that the statement of the Council has not stopped the M23, and those who support this group from seizing Goma and continuing their hostilities. Russia, from its side, will do everything possible, including through here in the Council, to stop the escalation and to restore prospects for diplomatic settlement in the interest of stabilizing the situation in the eastern DRC. Thank you very much indeed.
I thank the representative of the Russian Federation